At 56 years old, Ice Cube's life has endured no shortage of turbulence and pain, making his story a tragedy that cannot be ignored. From his resounding success in music and film to the challenges of family health and personal loss, all of it paints a surprisingly dark picture. What has forced this legendary man to confront tragedies beyond imagination? Could there be hidden corners behind his illustrious career that few people know about? Let's explore Ice Cube's tearful and determined journey in this video. Don't forget to leave a comment with the number 1 if you agree with what has happened in his life, and the number 0 if you have a different opinion. Enjoy the video, and don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to support the channel. Now let's dive into this story. Ice Cube, whose real name is O'Shea Jackson, was born on June 15, 1969, in Westmont, an area located in the heart of Los Angeles. Here, his life was tied to long, weary days where the sunlight wasn't strong enough to brighten the small streets, and the flickering streetlights along the sidewalks hadn't been repaired in ages. This was a neighborhood where people had to live in silence, a heavy kind of silence that only those who lived there could truly understand. Ice Cube's father, Hosea Jackson, came home every night after a long day working at UCLA, exhausted but still carrying the pride of a hard-working man, while his mother, Doris, worked long shifts at the hospital, giving all her love to her children despite the constant financial struggles. Despite the financial struggles, Ice Cube's family always tried to maintain stability with modest meals and sparse conversations. However, the disturbances from their surroundings were unavoidable as the neighborhood was constantly filled with uncertainty and anxiety. A major tragedy struck when Ice Cube was only 12 years old when his sister Beverly passed away. It was a moment the family could never forget, as the unbearable pain shattered the fragile sense of peace that seemed to exist only in their memories. Witnessing his mother collapse upon hearing the devastating news and seeing his father sitting silently staring blankly into the distance, Ice Cube knew that his world would never be the same again. The overwhelming sense of loss forced the 12-year-old boy to confront an unbearable truth, one he had no idea how to handle. The months that followed in their quiet home where laughter no longer existed and only heavy silence remained made Ice Cube deeply realize that life is something incredibly fragile and easily taken away. The absence of Beverly left not only a void in the family, but also in Ice Cube's own heart. He began to feel lost, as if he was no longer part of the world he once knew. It was then that the pain and loss sparked a quiet determination within him, a desire to find an escape. And that escape came when Ice Cube began to write. From a challenge posed by a friend, he discovered his passion for writing a way to release the overwhelming emotions he couldn't share with anyone. Every night under the dim light, Ice Cube began to write until the words seemed to spill out of his mind on their own. Writing was not just a form of expression, it was survival, the only way to confront his pain and find pieces of himself again. When recalling those days, Ice Cube once shared that no one taught him how to write. It was life itself, its sadness, its struggles, and the passion buried deep within his heart that became his true teacher. At the age of 14, Ice Cube found his own voice in every verse, every rap line, and from there, a star began to rise. But before the world ever came to know the name Ice Cube, he had to endure years of unseen pain and a determination that was not easily gained. As Ice Cube grew older, his rap songs became more than just music. They became the voice of a generation of those who had lived through hardship and found their own path in a world full of challenges. Built on the foundation of unforgettable experiences from his past, Ice Cube became not only a great artist but also a symbol of resilience and relentless perseverance, no matter where life took him. Later, Ice Cube shared that while the lines and angles in architectural design can perfect a space, no house could ever recreate the fragments of his life. After a year pursuing a stable path, he decided to leave and return to Los Angeles, carrying the determination and pain of someone who had grown up too quickly. It wasn't rebellion, but the truth rising when silence could no longer be endured. He needed a place where the unsaid could finally breathe, where darkness was not a weakness, but a collection of stories waiting to be told. Music in all its raw and unpolished form gave him that space. Ice Cube poured his heart into writing not out of ambition, but out of necessity for survival. Together with his cousin Sir Jinx, he formed CIA and performed at backyard parties where Dr. Dre kept the music alive with his turntables. Those gatherings were loud and chaotic, something his quiet home had never offered. And within those beats, something inside him was awakened. Dre recognized it not just from Cube's rhythm, but from the weight and precision in every word. At 16, Ice Cube sold the stories of his neighborhood to Eazy-E, marking a significant shift in the atmosphere around him. Although fame had not yet arrived, this was the first time someone outside the neighborhood recognized him as a voice worth listening to, a truth that could be conveyed. However, the path ahead was still filled with challenges. At that time, rap was dismissed and underestimated, and Ice Cube came from a place that many people tended to ignore, belittle, or fear. Others had overlooked him before he even spoke, assuming that someone from the neighborhood had nothing to say. But Ice Cube overcame all of those rejections. He wrote late into the night, guided by South Central. The sound of car horns, streetlights, and the weight of memory formed the foundation for the words he wrote. With each line of verse, he built something more solid than any blueprint he had ever studied. A foundation of truth, resilience, and the belief that his voice would not be denied. And from that foundation, his rise was not simply a beginning. It became inevitable, a storm silently forming from late-night parties where only the porch light and the deep hum of speakers existed. When Ice Cube joined NWA, he was not just an ordinary young rapper, but the sharpest pen, a voice representing the neighborhoods that all of America wanted to ignore. His lyrics were not meant for entertainment, but to confront reality. However, the truth about the contracts behind the spotlight was a harsh story. The contracts concealed what he truly deserved, and Ice Cube received a payment of only $32,000 for an album that sold millions of copies. But his fiery passion in NWA was not easily extinguished, even though the signatures weren't his. In 1989, he left the group, stepping into the darkness without a map, yet choosing dignity over comfort. Honesty came with solitude, and in the early 90s, Ice Cube proved why he had always been a steadfast pillar in the rap world. The albums AmeriKKK's Most Wanted 1990 and Death Certificate 1991 made waves nationwide, followed by The Predator 1992, which sold over 2 million copies and became the top album on both the pop and R&B charts that year. With these successes, Ice Cube shaped the conversation of the entire country, but greatness always comes with sacrifices. He worked 16 hours a day, slept on tour buses, and faced high expectations from the public. And as new waves emerged from G-Funk to the next generation, the shifts in the music industry made him feel the pains deeply. Ice Cube's tremors became seismic shocks in the music world. Although he had achieved so much, Ice Cube still had to learn to be confident when the stage lights went out, realizing that Hollywood was not a refuge, but a new battlefield. In 1991, director John Singleton saw something raw in Ice Cube's eyes, something that couldn't be taught, only felt. Ice Cube and Boys N. The Hood marked a major turning point in his career, transforming him into an actor the industry could not ignore. However, this acceptance did not come easily. When stepping into the audition room, he was not just an artist, but also a rapper, which meant he had to work twice as hard to prove himself. He spent countless nights studying the script, rewriting scenes to make them more authentic, and studying the camera the way he once studied life's hardships. Friday in 1995 changed everything. This was a film he both wrote and starred in, turning a $3.5 million budget into $28 million and creating a proud cultural legacy. Through his production company Cube Vision, he produced hit films like Barbershop $75 million, Are We There? Yet nearly $100 million and 21 Jump Street. However, with success came no small pressure. Meetings stretched until midnight, film budgets soared, and the fear that a single failure could erase years of hard work loomed large. Success did not ease the burden. On the contrary, it made the risks even higher. Big 3 in 2017 was the boldest leap in his career as Ice Cube decided to enter the sports world by founding a professional basketball league. Turning a rapper into the owner of a sports league sounded naive to critics and impossible to many. Yet he remained determined to build it, making crucial decisions about arenas, players, contracts, lawsuits, and partnerships. The league burned through millions of dollars before earning a single cent. During long nights, he stared at the numbers, knowing that failure meant not just losing money, but also risking the legacy he had spent a lifetime building. Yet he kept fighting, just as he had overcome every challenge in his life. Like the long bus rides from South Central, the sweat-soaked music nights, and the doors slammed shut in his face, Ice Cube never stopped striving. He did not rise from zero to a net worth of over $150 million simply because the world made space for him. He climbed to the heights of fame because he relentlessly carved space from stone, turning pain into power into work, and work into a legacy that will endure forever. However, time always tests even the strongest spirits. Over the years, Ice Cube has learned that some storms do not roar, they merely whisper. In 2021, he quietly stepped away from the film Oh Hell No, turning down a $9 million role because he would not comply with the studio's vaccine mandate. He did not protest, argue, or try to change anyone's mind. He simply said no and accepted all the consequences of that decision. In Hollywood, $9 million is not just a paycheck. It is leverage, protection, and stability that even legends must fight to maintain. Yet he walked away, and though he knew that a decision made in silence often echoes for a long time, it left a deep wound. Not because of the money he lost, but because of what he refused in order to uphold his principles. What followed could not be captured on camera, yet it marked a change that no one could ever forget. The feeling was subtle, yet unmistakable. Hollywood, where he had devoted 3 decades of sweat discipline and innovation, was moving forward without him. It did not punish, it did not block him, it simply moved on. It was a deeper wound than anything else, watching younger names gradually take the place he once held as new rules began to creep into the industry like dust. Opportunities gradually appeared in rooms where his name was no longer the first mentioned. Ice Cube once joked that Hollywood changes like the weather. If you don't hold on to your coat, you'll wake up in a season you never expected. For him, winter came early, cold, and silent with no warning. For a man who had built doors that didn't exist, realizing the world no longer paid attention to him became a pain sharper than any headline. Yet even in that long, relentless winter, he held on to the determination he had cultivated long before the world ever noticed. If you resonate with this story, comment 1. If you don't fully agree, comment 0. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a subscription to support us. And now, let's continue following the next developments together. There were days when the phone stayed silent, scripts he trusted were handed to someone else, and meetings ended with polite smiles and quiet doubts. Days when the whisper, "Your time is over," echoed louder than any applause. But Ice Cube had heard those whispers before, back when he was 19, leaving NWA with only one truth in hand. He heard it when critics panned his early solo work, when he stepped into acting, when he launched Big 3, each of his bold moves dismissed as mistakes until they were no longer mistakes. And though age adds weight to every disappointment, and though some might think that at 56 he is no longer needed, Ice Cube still faces all these challenges, as he always has, with the quiet persistence of a man who refuses to yield. Some wounds never bleed. They lie heavy in the chest, turning each night into a conversation with oneself about which chapters are ending and which ones one has the courage to begin. But there is one truth that time cannot take from him. Ice Cube has never measured his worth by the doors others opened, only by the doors he built himself when they did not. Losing a $9 million role did not bring him down. Hollywood's changes did not silence him. On the contrary, they clarified him. Today, he is not defeated. Instead, he stands firm, moving with the calm certainty of someone who has weathered enough storms to no longer fear dark clouds. He continues to tour, create, lead Big 3, and speak out with the confidence of a man who has secured his place in American cultural history. And in a world growing ever noisier with conflicting opinions, Ice Cube has become quieter with deliberate purpose. Because ultimately, his journey is not about chasing the spotlight, but about the strength to stand firm when the spotlight turns away. That strength, more than fame, money, or status, is the legacy he knows time cannot erase. His career has tested, hurt, and reshaped him, but family has been the grace that soothes every storm. Long before the world knew his name, Ice Cube met the woman who would accompany him through every spotlight. Kimberly Woodruff did not love him at first sight, but there was something in her quietly confident stride that made him pause. She moved through the world with such grace that every sound seemed to vanish, and he found himself searching for her in the crowd before she even turned around. Months later, when life had softened the edges around them, Kimberly finally saw him the way he had always seen her. When Ice Cube and Kimberly married in 1992, he had only just touched the edge of fame. Yet they were still just two young souls counting money for groceries under the pale yellow kitchen light, sharing late dinners on a sagging sofa that creaked with every shift. Their refrigerator hummed all night and cracked dishes clinked softly during simple meals. Their first apartment with its thin walls held countless hopes and unfinished dreams. Those early days were far from glamorous, yet their authenticity unwittingly became the solid foundation for an extraordinary life to come. But Hollywood, while offering dazzling fame, also demanded its price. As Ice Cube's star rose, the cost of family life grew. Many nights, Kimberly ate dinner alone under the flickering kitchen light, her fork lightly scraping a cold plate, never sharing the table with another hand. She cared for their 5 children, rocking them to sleep on nights when he was absent due to a packed schedule from airports to cold hotel rooms. Ice Cube missed birthdays, first steps, and countless precious moments that he could only revisit through faded photos and hurried phone calls between shoots. Then on one son's birthday, everything seemed to pause in silence. Kimberly prepared dinner, checked the front door over and over, holding her breath in anticipation. When her son quietly asked, "Is Dad coming home?" she knelt, stroked his hair, and whispered, "He's trying." But Ice Cube still hadn't arrived. Each passing minute made the room feel heavier, and the child's small hopes slowly faded like half-burned candles on a tilted cake waiting. When he finally arrived home, keys still in hand, Ice Cube stood silently in the hallway, sensing the quiet that hung over every wall. Through the slightly ajar door, he saw Kimberly sitting at the table, head bowed the birthday cake, leaning as if exhausted from waiting balloons, drooping like tired dreams. Their son had long since fallen asleep, the small gift meant for his father still clutched in his hand. In that moment, Cube felt something inside him shatter, a painful realization that he had traded too much precious family time for the world outside. In that breathless moment, Cube felt something inside him shatter, a realization like broken glass. He had the whole world, yet had lost the most precious time. What redeemed them was not an apology or a grand gesture, but the quiet courage to stay even while still in pain. And from that point, Ice Cube began to change, returning home differently, more slowly, more present in ways he never had before. He would sit on the edge of the bed, listening to his family sleep, wondering how many nights he had missed. Kimberly noticed the shift. She saw him standing at the doorway as if relearning the image of their home. He relaxed his shoulders when holding the children longer than usual, and she softened. Their children, Osha Jr., Daryl, Karima, Deja, and Cherie, unintentionally stitched their parents' bond back together with laughter and tiny hands reaching for both of them at once. In 2015, in Straight Outta Compton, Ice Cube played a father reliving the pains and victories of his youth. The whole family sat together in the darkened theater, and as the film passed across the screen, Cube saw his life reflected in his son's eyes. Every loss, every wound, every triumph, and something inside him was healed by a gentleness he had never expected. In that glow, he was not the icon admired by the world. He was simply a husband, a father, and later a grandfather. Today, their home still has its imperfections, like all true homes. Fiery arguments, bitter misunderstandings, and then the soft return to forgiveness. Yet it remains steady and warm day by day, nurtured through each hard-earned day. Those moments quietly unfold around the kitchen table with the people who have never stopped longing for him to come home. The whole world remembers the day Eazy-E left us. The sensational headlines on TV, the silence that blanketed Los Angeles like a shock. Doubt spread through the neighborhoods that had grown up to the sound of his voice. Only 31 years old, too young to go too iconic to lose. For millions, it felt like the end of a hip-hop era. But for Ice Cube, it was a loss far more intimate and painful, the departure of a brother he could never forgive. They had once stood shoulder to shoulder in cramped studios under flickering lights and crackling speakers, striving to turn raw sound into a legacy. Fame lifted them, money divided them, and pride kept them silent. Ultimately, life in its quietest and harshest moment slammed shut, a door neither of them knew would lock forever. Long before the world called them pioneers, they were just kids with notebooks, cheap microphones, and a burning desire, growing up with nothing but potential to hold on to. Ice Cube still remembers the dusty smell of their first studio, the old equipment, the mismatched chairs, and the rolled-up rug at the edge. He remembers Easy leaning back in his chair, listening to the rhythm with a small, knowing nod. That rhythm said, "There's something here. Keep going." It was Easy who believed in him when his name held no value at all. Easy, who bought Boys in the Hood when Cube was just 16, gave him a chance that would change both of their lives. And in those years, it seemed as if fate belonged only to them. NWA was like lightning in a bottle, explosive, fearless, unforgettable. A moment in music history that still echoes decades later. Yet that lightning burned as quickly as it struck. Contracts distorted intentions, misunderstandings arose, and loyalty turned into tension. Ice Cube left the group in 1989 carrying unresolved anger and unnamed regrets. Easy still felt betrayed, and so they drifted apart. Two men who once shared everything were now separated by a silence too heavy for either of them to break. Then in early 1995, a phone call made Ice Cube stop in his tracks. Eazy-E was in the hospital. His condition was severe, far beyond what fans knew. Complications from an AIDS diagnosis had led to sudden severe pneumonia, a life-threatening illness that left almost no time to respond. Cube felt the weight of the past 8 years crash down on him all at once. Every argument, every sharp lyric like a knife. Every moment he thought he could make right later. He didn't go to the press, didn't rehearse a eulogy. He sat alone for hours, recalling memories he wished he could rewrite. When Cube finally stepped through the hospital door, everything felt worse. The sterile lights, the silent hallways, the distant beeping of machines. Whispers floated through the room, nurses hurried past, and somewhere behind a closed door, the young man he had recorded with until dawn was slowly fading away. Cube stepped closer to the room, brushing his hand against the cold metal doorknob, and froze. He couldn't go in. He stared at the tiled floor because looking up meant facing a truth he wasn't ready to accept. Then he quietly admitted, "I don't know what I would say." But time waits for no regrets. On March 26, 1995, Eazy-E passed away. Sudden, sharp, definitive, and with him vanished the last fragile chance to mend what had broken between them. Los Angeles mourned him loudly, but Ice Cube cried in silence. At the funeral, surrounded by cameras, fans, and the heavy echo of a legend gone too soon, he stood there with a weight no newspaper could capture. He did not cry in public, he rarely cried. But those close to him say that grief lingered in his chest like something that could never fully dissipate. Because some wounds never fully heal. Some wounds are simply lessons. In the years that followed, Ice Cube spoke of Eazy-E with gentleness, revealing the truth behind every tension of the past, not as a rival, not as a business partner, but as a friend who gave him his very first real opportunity. "We were just kids," he once said. "Kids trying to make something out of nothing." Perhaps that is why the loss feels so profound. Not because they were great together, but because they were young together, full of hope, daring brilliance and flaws, believing life would always give them another chance to make things right. Today, when Ice Cube looks back at the stages he once ruled, the films he created, the empire he built, there is always a quiet figure standing beside him. The memory of a boy with a piercing laugh, dark sunglasses, and a wide, carefree smile that once seemed eternal. And in that darkness, the lesson the cold stone imparted remains intact. Make peace while the door is still open, for some doors close suddenly and some goodbyes need no words. Now at 56, Ice Cube stands tall as a living testament to how far determination, discipline, and unwavering belief can take a man. His current net worth is estimated at around $160 million, a figure so astonishing it feels almost unreal when you recall the cracked sidewalks and flickering streetlights of South Central where he began. But every dollar of that fortune carries the weight of long nights in basement studios, early mornings on film sets, business negotiations that stretched until dawn, and a lifetime of choosing ownership over comfort. Even his real estate portfolio alone is enough to illustrate the American dream at its most triumphant. His Marina del Rey mansion stretches along the Grand Canal, sparkling across multiple levels with glass floors, floating staircases, rooftop terraces with fireplaces and sea breezes, a private home theater, a chef's kitchen polished in marble, and balconies overlooking the calm waters as if painted at dawn. It's a home that exudes luxury in every detail, from heated floors to panoramic views that turn every evening into a postcard. Then there's his 8,000-square-foot estate in Encino, a property he's owned for decades, with 7 bedrooms, a master suite with dual rooms, a recording studio near the back wing, a fully equipped gym, meticulously trimmed lawns, a private basketball court, a resort-style pool and spa. A vast living space ample enough to host family gatherings without ever feeling cramped. A luxury car collection valued at nearly $700,000, featuring a '64 Chevy Impala lowrider in original condition, a Rolls-Royce Ghost with custom details, a Porsche Panamera built for speed and elegance, a Cadillac Escalade for family trips, and several customized West Coast-style vehicles that he helped define. Each car is more than metal. It's a story of journey and unforgettable victories. It's a milestone marking the journey Ice Cube has traveled. For a man who started with nothing but a notebook and determination, these homes and machines aren't symbols of excess. They're reminders of survival, reinvention, and generational strength. Yet Ice Cube's empire wasn't built on luxury alone. It was built on vision. Music opened doors for him, film expanded his influence, and production solidified his impact. His entrepreneurial spirit helped him build a secure future. When he co-founded the Big Three basketball league in 2017, critics doubted him. They weren't sure a rapper could build a professional sports brand from scratch. Yet step by step, through negotiations with investors, collaborations with stadiums, contracts with retired NBA legends, and countless critical decisions behind closed doors, Cube built something real, something respected and profitable. He quickly realized that applause fades, trends change, and fame dissipates over time. But ownership endures, investments endure, vision endures. And his current life, from the glass-walled coastal homes to sprawling estates and a garage gleaming like a gallery, stands as proof that dreams nurtured from nothing can grow into a lasting legacy. At home, Ice Cube's life is now calmer, more complete, more stable, and shaped by the family he has built over more than 3 decades. He and Kimberly have maintained the relationship they committed to in 1992, but now their world is different, peaceful, solid, and surrounded by the voices of grown children, each carrying their own dreams. Their eldest son, O'Shea Jackson Jr., is a successful actor with a rising career. He often stops by for late dinners or brings his own son along, turning Ice Cube into a gentle grandfather few fans ever get to see. Daryl works in music and production, building his career behind the scenes. Karima and Deja mostly keep to themselves, staying out of the spotlight, while Shariaf, the youngest, enjoys creative activities and family gatherings with the easy confidence of someone raised in a household built on both love and discipline. Today, Ice Cube's family is no longer defined by chaos or deadlines. It is defined by routine. Mornings begin with sunlight pouring through wide windows. Kimberly reads in the kitchen while Cube reviews his schedule or quietly checks important updates. Some days, the house is filled with the laughter and chatter of all 5 children around the long dining table. On other days, it's just father and son walking across their property at sunset, talking about the kids' grandchildren and the simple joy of reaching an age when family matters more than any premiere. Holidays are now bigger, louder, but also warmer. Grandchildren's toys scatter across the living room. Cousins chat excitedly. Kimberly cooks the dishes everyone has been looking forward to all year, moving around the house with the slow, satisfied rhythm of a man who has finally learned to savor the life he has built. He still works tours, produces, and leads the Big Three, but when he comes home, he leaves the outside world behind. Here he is not a rapper, not a mogul, not an icon. He simply is. A husband whose favorite spot is still the sofa beside his wife. A father offering advice during outdoor barbecues. A grandfather who bends down slowly, yet smiles brighter than he ever did in his youth. And at this stage of life, that role, the steady presence across 3 generations, has become what he cherishes most. Kindness is quietly woven into everything he does. He rarely publicizes his efforts, but those close to him know he has invested in design programs to expand access for young creators and underserved communities. He believes in giving others the opportunities he once needed, not as charity, but through access, mentorship, funding, and capability. His message is simple: always give opportunities, because one opportunity can change a life. Help others build doors, because not everyone is born where doors exist. This belief permeates everything Ice Cube does, from business decisions to quiet acts of generosity. Even now, with decades of success behind him and comfort all around, he moves through the world with the confidence of a man who has earned every inch of peace in his life. Ice Cube is still on the move, continuing to build projects, attending Lakers and Dodgers games, and maintaining the quiet fire that has driven him since he first picked up a pen. The Big Three continues to grow under his leadership. And whenever he steps onto a stage, whether in a packed arena or an intimate venue, the crowd can feel the unmistakable power of a man who still remembers the feeling of fighting for a single microphone. Time has touched him, yes, but instead of making him weak, it has forged him. Now his gaze is calm, his voice clear, as if he understands that the world around him can change however it pleases, yet the man at the center remains unshaken. So, as this chapter of Ice Cube's life draws to a close, perhaps what lingers for us isn't a lesson, but a feeling. The quiet awareness that every life, public or private, carries its own storms and victories. Perhaps it is perseverance. Perhaps it is humanity. Perhaps it is the way he continues to rise even as the world beneath him changes. And if anything from Ice Cube's journey resonates with you a moment, a memory or a glimpse of the man he is today, we invite you to share it with us in the comments below. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to like, share the video, and leave a subscription to support the channel. We look forward to continuing this journey with you in future videos. See you next time.